Welcome to the Decide Your Legacy podcast, helping individuals and businesses unleash their potential. Join us every episode as host Adam Gregg discusses what is holding us back and how to find hope for moving forward. Along the way, we discuss developing healthy relationships and navigating life transitions while overcoming fear, stress, and anxiety. Live the life you want, the legacy you decide.
So welcome to episode 139 of the Decide Your Legacy podcast. Today's episode is called Making New Friends, and I have a special guest who I'm going to introduce to you in just a moment here. He's been a guest on this podcast before. His name is Nick, but I'm your host, Adam Gregg. I've been a coach and a family therapist, a mental health professional for 25 years, over 25 years. My passion is helping people find transformational clarity to face their biggest fears, to live their legacy, to have a plan. I talk about stuff I struggle with myself. I don't have it all figured out. I'm a fellow traveler. And I'll tell you, this topic of making new friends, it's a big deal. Holidays are here. In fact, you're going to see people that you don't see a lot throughout the year. A time to reconnect, a time to see old friends, a time to really take some risks, to make new friends as well. And I can feel lonely over the holidays. For most of you, you may know that my family's not here in town, my biological family. I have my daughter, Emerson, here, but I don't have my siblings and my parents and everybody. So sometimes I can feel like, oh my gosh, I don't have a lot of people over the holidays. But I realize that my friends and those connections, it makes a huge difference for me. And so my hope for you is you're going to find inspiration. In fact, I know that by the end of this, you're going to find some inspiration from Nick and his story. It's very inspiring. And you're going to find some tools and some reminders of why you want to put some energy into this whole topic in making and investing in new connections. So Nick, as I've mentioned before, I like to share something uncomfortable that I've done recently with the audience because nothing is more important for your mental health, which we discussed in Facing Your Fears.
Right.
Nothing is more damaging than playing it safe. So recently, I have intentionally decided to trust more. And in the past, I have maybe trusted too much or too little, but trust and verify, but giving people a chance. It's not been easy because I've been hurt in certain scenes professionally and personally, but it's like letting go. And I've realized that is a great thing. I mean, I'm still going to have people that maybe don't do, I'm not going to ever have perfect situations where everybody is trustworthy, but there's a lot of good people out there, people I can trust. So that's a cool thing. And I want the audience here to start off with an action as well. Like, what is a situation, a relationship that they could potentially trust more in that person, maybe by reaching out, maybe by opening up more, by being vulnerable, then they could actually build more trust. I want you to think about a relationship. Maybe it's your brother, maybe it's your sister, maybe it's a friend, maybe it's a new person that you just met that you can actually reach out and connect with more. Maybe because you have more free time, you could go grab lunch or coffee as you have more free time over the holidays. A coworker, I see great relationships spurred with coworkers. So think about that as you get started here. And so we're going to talk, and I'm going to ask Nick a bunch of questions today because, and Nick, if you could just introduce yourself, tell us a little about your background, things like that.
Okay. I'm 69 years old, just getting close to 70, a couple months. So
my gosh.
That's a milestone.
What's the date again?
February 20th.
Oh my gosh.
1955. So think about it.
Cool. 1955.
Yeah. So I've got a wife, Denise. I've got a stepson and 2 daughters, along with 6 grandchildren, 3 girls and 3 boys. Wonderful people, all of them. So great. I've been blessed.
What's your background professionally?
So I'm in the pipeline construction business. We build pipelines for fossil fuels, oil, natural gas, that kind of stuff. And I've done that for just about 50 years. I started July 9th. Don't ask me how I remember that date. July 9th, 1975. I remember.
Okay. How big was the company when you started?
When I started, we probably had a dozen people, maybe dozen pieces of equipment, small company, operated out of a trailer.
Yeah.
That was our office.
That was it. What was the revenue of the company at that point, do you think?
I don't know. If we got up to a couple 100,000, I'd be...
Really? When you started?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah. And so at its peak, how many people did you guys employ?
So At its peak, we were working about 2,500 people.
And you were a part of a company growing from 12 people to 2,500 people.
I was.
That's quite a cool thing.
It was.
To get-
It's an experience for sure. Going from a little company to a bigger company and being bought by a corporation.
Yeah.
So I've seen the private
Yeah.
part and the corporation part. So it's
And
been quite an.
I know we're talking about building friendships,
Right.
Reconnecting with new people. So what led to your interest in having this passion to build new connections?
That's an interesting thing because I was pretty work intense, I guess is a good way to put it. So developing friendships, I had a lot of work friends, a lot of people that you can call them friends, but they were work friends. And so as my role started to diminish, I had more time and be able to look around a little bit, and I could see a need for some relationships beyond what I had developed. Because, at some point your career goes away and there's a need to, unless you want to isolate yourself, I could see a need for doing that. And there was a struggle with me stepping away from my role in the business. So I had reached out to get some help dealing with that. And through that, started to see the importance of relationships and how they can help get through some of those struggles in life.
Okay.
Those people those close connections would be something that could help you maneuver through those difficult times, which I thought I could handle everything, but that's not quite true.
Was
really.
there something that happened that made it stick that like, I can't do this anymore the way I'm doing it?
Specifically, yes.
Okay.
So I went into a financial advisor to check on my stuff. And in the process of that, I got kind of emotional about the whole thing. He had seen this before in guys, I suppose, because he manages a lot of people's money. So at that point, I realized, and he did too. In fact, he instructed me or asked me if he said, well, I can help you financially, but you probably need to get some other help first.
Yeah.
Which was very insightful. I appreciate his advice. And so through that, I got a hold of Decide Your Legacy and Adam. That's been a number of years ago.
It
now.
has. That's right.
And started that journey. So it's been quite the experience.
You were a guest on a podcast maybe a year or two ago on journaling, the power of journaling.
Yep.
That's actually a really popular episode that we're going to link to in the show notes. I know that had an impact to get some insight into your thoughts and everything.
It did.
And so that was a goal that you set.
I did.
And then I remember you telling me you set a goal to say, I want to go deeper in my connections.
I
and
did.
It was like intentional. Like, okay, I want to do this.
Yes.
So what have you, when did you realize that was actually a passion? I mean, it's one thing to say, Adam told me, or my friends told me, or somebody else told me that I should build deeper connections, the financial planner or whatever. When did it become a passion for you to go say, I'm going to go different, I'm going to do this thing differently?
I think I don't know if a place that just jumped out at me. It kind of developed. I think you develop that by getting to know some people. If you make it purposeful, like I did, I joined the church and then a men's group, and purposeful just to get to know some people. I thought the men's group at church, small group, it would be a place where I could get to know people, and did that. I could see that I wanted something deeper than just hi, how are you? The weather's good. See how, what your favorite sports teams did. Something a little deeper than that, where you actually get to know somebody, where you can kind of work through issues or just have that kind of connection that helps you see life, I guess, in a different way.
Yeah. And so I talked about last week that as I talked about how to make new friends, one thing that it really helps one reason why you want to make new connections and go deeper with the ones you have is it's really important to make you resilient mentally, like mental health stuff. Like those connections make a huge difference. And you can check out that podcast if you'd like to. I mean, it's some basic reasons why and some things you can actually do. But I'm curious, for you, what has been the biggest challenge for you to overcome in meeting new people?
Well, that's an easy one. I can meet new people easy. I can walk up to somebody and start a conversation. That's extremely easy for me. What gets difficult for me is beyond that, when I have to open up and be vulnerable to people. That's where I struggle, because at that point you gotta open up. If you want to get to know somebody deeper, you have to be willing to let them know you. And I struggled with doing that because I'm kind of a private person. I guess maybe that's it, or maybe some fear of if they get to know me, this relationship is going nowhere. They'll think less of me than what I want them to.
Yeah.
And so that's extremely hard for me to go past those initial conversations that are easy to do for me anyway. I know other people struggle with that, but going past that, opening up, is really tough.
So is there a default fear that you have when you meet somebody new?
Yeah, I'll feel like I'm not interesting, that I won't be
Yeah.
able to hold a conversation because I don't have anything that interests them, or I'm going to say something goofy, which I can do pretty
Yeah.
easily.
Yeah.
But yeah, just that kind of feeling.
You can say
that
goofy things?
I can,
Well,
yeah.
that's good. I like that. I like to say goofy things.
Yours might be purposeful. Mine aren't.
I see. Okay. You know what is fascinating is you started with your company at Joe Max Construction with 12 people.
Yeah.
And then it grew to 22,000
Yeah.
plus people.
Yeah.
Okay. So, and you were at the end that you were actually running the company.
I was, yep.
And as the CEO.
Yeah.
And then people listening are like, well, why would you be? Because you wouldn't have been perceived as being worrying about what people would think. In that role, were you worrying about people perceiving you as goofy or whatever, not being good enough or whatever you're saying? Or no?
Not that role is usually connected with, it is connected with the business. And I knew the business forward and backwards. That wasn't a problem. Now, if I would have asked me about my personal life, that would have been a little different. A lot of them didn't know. Maybe they didn't care. That doesn't make any difference. But I was comfortable in the role because it's a work role. But opening up in that, which when you run a company, that became more of an issue later part of that whole process of finding a new leader for the company, and that became more of a deal. But no, running the company wasn't a personal thing. It was more of a business or work thing that I didn't really worry about that. There's still, you don't want to look foolish. You don't want to do something stupid. And there's always that, like, do I really know what I'm doing? Is this role above me? That's a given, I think. Most people have those kind of struggles, and I did, but I didn't.
So you felt like you were an expert, or you really knew the pipeline construction business.
I did.
Well.
Yes.
So that gave you confidence in those interactions.
It did.
But in the interactions that are more personal, not so much.
Not so much.
What does it mean to you to be vulnerable in a relationship?
Well, it's a huge thing, obviously, because to me, to have someone understand the whole point of a relationship, or my opinion of a strong relationship, someone understands you deeply, where if you have an issue, they can help you work through that or give an example in their life, and you understand them. So you can have a conversation. If you don't understand that person and they don't understand you or know what you've gone through, it's hard to get that connection that helps you just maneuver through life, I think, and maneuver through especially transitions in life.
So is there a definition of what a vulnerable interaction would be versus one where you're not being vulnerable?
Well, yes. One where you're not vulnerable is you keep some things hidden. Like if you have a fear of, name it. You're not afraid to voice it, like whoever you're talking to. Listen, I'm afraid of being pushed out of the way in the business, whatever.
Right,
you have that fear and you hide that and not bring it out. So that person doesn't know. You don't know that other person's struggling. He doesn't know how you're struggling.
They could judge you, or they could reject you, or they could use it against you.
They could.
It's vulnerable because it's honest.
Yeah.
But you don't know what they're going to do with it. So that makes it it makes it scarier.
It is scary. And I had to do that with a guy that's taken my place. I asked him to make sure that he was honest with me and his feelings, and I would be the same. And that wasn't a business thing. That was more about a personal thing so we could understand each other so the transition would go smoothly.
Yeah. How's it going?
Great. It's
Good.
going well,
Yeah.
yes. We've done well maneuvering through that
Yeah.
minefield. So, yeah, it's because he's been open and made decisions, and I've been open with him what I think. And
And I
so
think that's such a cool thing that the company has you as because your successor, you've been able to mentor and stay
yeah.
on.
Yep.
And then when you retire officially, I guess you'll have been there 50 years.
Yeah, that's right.
That's going to be a wild party, man.
I don't know. I just want to walk away and call it a day.
So, what do you love most about building new relationships? Connecting with new people or going deeper with people like, Brian or whatever.
I think that feeling of connection, and the same way with the guys in the men's group at church, and that there's that connection there that feels satisfying. It's hard to put a finger on it. It's not something you can, well, maybe you can rate it, but I can't. It's just that feeling of there's someone there that understands you, that you could go to if you get in a bind, or that you could be honest with, which to me, that's
Yeah.
a really big thing.
That is a really big thing.
It's a really big thing.
You
yeah.
ever think like, well, why? I don't know. I do this sometimes. Like when I feel like I've had a good conversation with somebody and I feel like or the connection, like, why didn't I do this
Yeah,
before?
yeah.
Or like, why do I feel lonely when I realize that, okay,
Yeah.
that's a good, yeah.
Because it's changed my life in the way I look at people, and even my spiritual life. My at home, at church, in the church, is different because of the way I react to people, where I'm not quite so guarded, and at work too, way I understand people, or way that I interact. I wish this would have been extremely useful to me to be in that position years ago, because
Yeah.
yeah, and maybe not, maybe useful's not, well, it's close enough, but
Yeah.
I could have, I think people could have used some more insight on my part.
Yeah.
So I regret some of that, really, that I wasn't more involved in some of the struggles they were going through.
And you're obviously, you've changed a lot with that. I guess, how do you get past that if you have regrets?
Well,
Yeah.
there's nothing I can do about that. I have tried to change and be more open with the
Yeah.
people at work. I think had some success in that. And being
Yeah.
a little more human has made my whole role
Yeah.
a lot better for the company and for those around me, too.
What's a specific success you've had?
I can tell. So I had a guy that was struggling, an area manager, and we had, I had been part of the legacy group at your company with that, and
Yeah.
we had talked about questions, open-ended questions, and working through. Anyway, I had a guy that was struggling. He decided, he was a manager in there, and decided he had enough, and which disturbed me. So I drove south to Oklahoma, where he was, and was going to be rather forceful on
You're gonna
him
stay.
staying around. Yeah, you're going to stay. And,
Which
and
is, I guess, what you would have done in the past.
I would have, yes.
Yeah.
I would have been
Wait a second
hard-nosed
here.
about it, because I'd spent some time with the guy. I
Yeah.
liked him, smart guy.
Yeah.
And ask him some questions, and through that, some open-ended questions, and could see that he was struggling with good reason, and got to understand him a little better. And, at the end of that conversation, I realized that this wasn't the place for him, not because he couldn't do it, because he was a smart guy, doing a good job. It was just his background. It was just hard for him. And he had to work through that before he was ever going to be happy.
Mm-hmm.
And we had that conversation and keep in contact yet. And so I look at that, even though he left the company, left a hole there, it was still a success.
Yeah. Would you have said it was a success 10 years ago?
I would not have.
I know. Isn't that interesting? I knew the answer. That wasn't really a question. That was like a...
Yeah. No, I would.
know.
It would have been. I would have put it down as a failure.
That's amazing. though.
Yeah.
Like,
But I look at it as, in the last several years, as one of the biggest successes, because I know what he can do and what he told me he'd like to do, and that amazed me.
which is what?
He could work with young men and had that passion. And I hope that's what he does. Maybe he'll listen to this. I hope that's what he
Yeah.
does, because he'd do well at it.
Yeah. Well, we can share this with everybody you know.
Yeah.
So that'd be cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember you talking about that, thinking that is really powerful.
Yeah.
And that's a new perspective.
It
right there,
is.
which one reason that making new friends is really powerful, just good people that you're connecting with, is you
Yeah.
get new ideas
Yeah.
and perspectives. Like the legacy group is a coaching group. It's a group of 8 people that really don't know each other unless they've met in a group before. And it is a place where they get to be vulnerable and open and challenged to grow. And so, yeah.
That's absolutely right. Those people in that group or groups, I feel like I know them as well as I know anybody, have that close connection with them. And, it was just however many meetings, or 6
Yeah.
or 8, I can't remember. But
Yeah.
from being open, and that's part of the process, being open, vulnerable, discussing issues, you really get that kind of connection with it that you feel something that you might feel for somebody
I
known for
mean,
years.
you're helping each other out.
Yeah.
And you're realizing there's a lot of commonality.
Yep.
People are asking questions. We're solving issues that
Yep.
people bring to the table. Everybody has a big goal for that quarter. And we meet every other week, twice a month for 3 months, a quarter, achieving that specific goal, but doing it as a group. And it's a fear. I mean, it's facing
Yeah.
a fear is a core value of Decide Your Legacy. And that's what people are bringing to the table there.
I was
So-
I was terrified the first one.
Hey, I mean, a lot of the people have been. We're forming a new group right now, so there are a couple slots at least in that group, I believe. So if you want to check that out, you can always reach out to me and Decide Your Legacy. And so one of the reasons why you want to make new connections is because it gives you new perspectives on things. And for you, tell me about a time that you have been afraid to make a connection and that you did, and basically you faced that little voice in your head to overcome the situation.
Well, I mean, the legacy group was one of them. I could have said no easily. I just don't want to do it. I don't want to take the time. I don't want to go through that anxiety of going to the meetings and opening up about my personal problems or my business problems, whatever. I don't. But, one of the biggest things is, and this is a group of people, was men's group at church, but because going through legacy, that pushed me to go to that group, which I didn't know those people very well. And so there was some anxiety there, but
In your men's group at church?
yeah, so it was a fear. And then sitting in there and listening to their different ideas and the struggles they were going through is just, it's been so good and helpful that, it helped change my perspective on people, really.
How, if you'd say before I had that newer perspective, what was the old perspective and what's the new perspective about getting to know people?
My old would have been, well, I'll go to church because I think it's important, but I don't need to connect. I'll go and go home. And now I want to be a part of the group, just like different areas of my life. Even my marriage, I think I have a bigger desire to be open. You can be closed off in a marriage just as well as you can in anything else. Just wanting to be involved, I guess, with people's lives. And if you can make a difference, fine. But
You have a default. I know for me at times when I'm not at my best, I can think like a new relationship, there's somebody that could hurt me or that it can be even just like totally not reality. Like that's going to be bad. It's going to be draining, or they're going to not, like me, and then if I shift it, it's amazing. Cause like my fear can turn to anxiety if I remember that, for one, like maybe I can learn a whole bunch from them and they could be really friendly. They could be somebody interesting. At least I keep the objective in mind. Like I'm getting to know somebody, and they may or may not be somebody but I'm just getting to know somebody.
Yeah, it may not work. It may be something, there may not be that connection there. There may be something in their lives that prevent them from being that person that can connect with you, but that's part of the process, I think.
Yeah.
You run into some people that just aren't that fit.
People are so interesting.
Absolutely.
But my mindset going into it, it's totally different posture.
Yeah.
It's interesting. It's fun. Who knows what's going to happen.
Right.
You're letting go of the outcome. Like, it's crazy how that happens. And then things happen that are good. And like, I mean, the opportunities I would miss if I had that, but it's not like I struggle with it every day still. It's not like I don't I mean, I struggle with anxiety every day
Well,
in relationships. Like, it's something, especially right when I wake up. Like, I'm in the worst. I am not in a good mood when I first wake up. I'm serious. Like, I'm mad at everything. I'm just like, I'm glad nobody gets to really see me right when I wake up, because they would not want to be around me.
I think that's really common waking up.
I guess it's like my mind is just not.
Yeah.
It's just not tuned up, man. It's hard. What would you say is one of the resources or tools that has been the most useful thing in making new connections? One of the most useful things in making new
Okay,
connections.
there's a couple things.
Okay.
My natural curiosity has been a huge advantage I have,
Yeah.
because I'm extremely curious about what people are doing, what they're thinking, what's happened to them. So you can use that, right? And
Yeah.
then I think legacy group, about you being hard-nosed about what kind of question.
I am hard-nosed
Yeah, you
about
are.
open-ended questions.
Yeah, open-ended questions, and that's a big deal. If you ask
Yep.
questions that people can, it's not a yes or no answer or a short answer, where they can dive into the problem or dive into the topic and
Yep.
talk about it.
Yep.
It's a big deal.
Yeah. So that tool you've brought out of there and using your
did.
other
I
avenues. Use it at work and use it at home.
I
Use it
do.
with-
I
yeah.
try to be purposeful,
Yeah.
because otherwise I'll wonder. I'll say, "Well, why you're doing that?" instead of, "How is
Man.
it you came to that decision?" or something, rather than.
Man, yeah. Why are you doing that? That's
Yeah.
not an open-ended
No,
question.
that's not.
That's an opinion. That's generally judgment. So, and we can share our opinions through questions, even disguised as open-ended questions. Like, an open-ended question is going to be a what or a how, generally. I mean, or can you give me an example? Or, what do you, tell a story about that? Or
Yeah.
they're open-ended in general senses, like they get people to elaborate.
Yeah.
And to think, and you don't know the answer. So if you don't know the answer, it cannot be that you know the answer, like a leading question. And I've done a little, even in this interaction here, I'm trying to be open-ended, but there's a few things I'm trying to, as an interviewer, trying to get you to make sure you share stories and things, or I know it already and I want the audience to hear. So it's a little bit different in this kind of context, but it's crucial, and it really makes for great, fun interactions. And so by being hard-nosed, I'm like, I coach people in the session and say, that's not an open, I mean, try rephrasing that. How can you rephrase that in a way, or not be leading in your question, not leading already to a specific answer?
Yeah, and you have to be purposeful about it when you talk to people, because it is a hard thing if you don't actually think about it, and you'll wander off track.
Yeah. You can wander off track easily
Yeah.
if that's the way. And it's kind of like, I tell people that this is really hard.
Yeah.
Really hard to go down this path. But the benefits are worth it. It's a long game. 'Cause it's hard at first, easy now, hard later, hard now, easy later, for sure. So if you found this podcast helpful so far, hit the link to Shatterproof Yourself. You can purchase the full version of Shatterproof Yourself. These are 7 small steps to a giant leap in your mental health. And you can also check out the free version, which is a 30-minute video and worksheet. It's on the same topic, but it's an abbreviated version, Shatterproof Yourself Lite, 7 small steps to a giant leap in your mental health. One of those steps, step 7, is on building friendships. So it's on some of my favorite tips for building friendships. So, and it's a mental health tip, because that's pretty important when it comes to your mental health. As we've shared, having good, healthy, solid connections. And people are lonely. I kid you not. There are so many lonely people out there, and there's good people. And a lot of it has to do with the way that we have limited interaction socially, sometimes because of technology. Some of it has to do with just this common fear of intimacy, of connection, of getting hurt. Why do we want, our ego is going to try and keep us safe. Our true self is going to help us connect and love. And I mean, love is a weird thing to share on a podcast and everything, but that's really what it is. It's like reaching out to people to connect. You got to risk to do that.
Absolutely.
Whether it's with your kids, your spouse, your friends, your coworkers. And that's really what you're doing, which is so exciting. So another real reason why you want to build new connections is they will help you to reach your goals. And that sounds selfish. And it's a both and. I mean, a lot of things in life, the healthiest things are both ands. I find that when I share my goals with good friends, I'm much more likely to achieve them.
Absolutely.
And I'm much more likely to have a healthier perspective about them. And I'm much more likely to actually have resources come about that I didn't even see were there, which is so cool. It's like, so they help you to be accountable. They help you to actually see your potential. They help you move forward, push through the tough stuff. And that's what I see in Legacy Group as well. So when you, Nick, tell me, how have friends helped you in recent times reach goals that you've set out? Let's say like Legacy Group, or let's say just people, how have they helped you reach some goals, and what might those goals have been or are?
Like at Legacy Group is a good example. I was interested in connecting a little deper with our pastor there at church, and he leads the group.
Your men's group.
Men's
So,
group.
Yeah, he leads your men's group. Your pastor.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. Men's group. So
Yep.
we had talked about that in men's group or in a Legacy Group some, and one of my commitments was to set up a lunch with him and talk about some things, because I have some anxiety talking to a pastor, because some of the things in my life, it's just, he's I don't know if you'd say authority figure. That's probably not right, but there's that anxiety because I'm a layman and he's a pastor. And anyway, so there was some concern about that, but I set up with them and a nice lunch with him, and we've connected, and I feel a lot more comfortable with the guy now. I can have a conversation with him, and I think some bigger things will lead from that. So that's an example of some commitment that I made in the group that I wasn't willing to break.
Yes,
So
and you made that in front of other people.
I made it in front of everybody and had to answer to it
and come back
the
and then
next
talk
2
about
weeks.
it.
Right.
Right. And then how did you feel making that connection with the pastor? Like after you had made it, how did it feel?
Well, I was nervous about it at first, but afterwards, that's a great feeling that I had connected with somebody. He understood more than what I thought and shared some of his own struggles with me. Some of that anxiety about just even talking to him at church, just some of that disappeared with that. And so that changed our whole relationship, I think. Now, whether he feels that same way, I think he does. But
And so what was the specific anxiety that you had? If you could pinpoint it, was it like specific fear that you had in that relationship? You probably already shared some of it, but if you could share a little more in depth.
with him,
Yeah.
well, there's that he may judge me because of my past, and might not be something that
Okay.
can be of, I want to be someone in the church that's useful, I guess. And I just worried that he might think that I wasn't up to the standards. And that was just an assumption on my part, right? But through visiting with him and having that connection, I realized that was some of my anxiety and my thoughts rather than that. So hopefully we can build on that. That's my desire.
So you felt that he would ask you about your past and that maybe he would use that against you potentially, or you wouldn't be
Yeah, or
worthy
just
if
think
you...
littler of me than
Yeah.
what I wanted them to. I wanted
Yeah.
them to think that I wanted
Yeah.
them to see me for who I was,
Oh,
right?
man.
Not my
Yeah.
past or what I've done.
Yeah.
And, so there's some things in my past
Yeah.
I'm not comfortable with. And so getting that out, and I was open with him because I felt that I needed to. And
Yeah.
so that was good.
That is so
It
interesting.
took some,
I know.
right. But I was committed.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I have found that because I have that fear as well, that as people ask me about some part of my past that I don't want to share.
Yeah.
And sometimes when I speak or talk, I just share it more up front. Like, I've been through a new client or whatever. Like I'll tell them I've had some rough things happen. I mean,
Yeah.
like I was unemployed for 7 months years ago. And that was something I was just ashamed of. I didn't
Yeah.
want to, didn't want to talk about it. Didn't even want to act like it happened. And then I started talking about it and realizing I can really help people with this. And then now it's like, yeah, I can help, and then I went through obviously a difficult situation 7 years ago, getting end of a marriage. And I mean, I didn't want to talk about that. And I'm still, it's not something it's kind of like, it's me. And if people can't accept it, and
Right.
it's like, I'm more okay with myself and everything. And most people, they really, I don't find it hurts
No,
anything.
it's
It makes me
surprising.
real and everything. So
It's surprising how that works, because the pastor had asked me about my life, my situation, and I'd kind of skirted around the edge of the thing and wasn't entirely open. I felt like I needed to really to feel comfortable, so it was felt good. felt good to get it out
How did
there
he
on the table.
respond when he learned more things about you?
Well,
Kick you out of his
he
office.
didn't get up and walk away, so I guess that was good. I
Are
took
you
that.
still struggling with this now? Like, what does he think of you? Like,
No, I don't. No, I really don't.
you know, it's like you're judged on your merits of who you are. I mean, I wanted the audience to know like your background professionally because I think it helps people relate to you and even your things because you've had great success. You've had things that you wish were different. I've had things the same way, and I want them to know I'm just me, and that. But they can relate because thinking, well, he can relate now because someone will look at you in your role running the company. Oh, he had it all figured out. He must be not care about rejection because he wouldn't be in that position. If he, really, that's what people think sometimes. I think that way sometimes because it's intimidating.
Yeah.
Where you think people are kind of intimidated by the success you've had and everything, but don't realize that you're as human as anybody. In fact, you may have bigger fears than them.
You do.
Like,
There's that anxiety of not thinking you're good enough for the position, that you may fail in that position, and people are going to look down at you. It's some pressure until you kind of adapt to it. And then they can look at your life and think, well, everything's great. But behind the scenes, your personal life, and mine was, I did well at business, but my personal life was sometimes difficult. And most people didn't know that because I didn't open up about it.
Until now. Now you open up. And
I try. I'm not perfect on that, but I think I'm getting better.
So can you share an example of how you've been more vulnerable professionally outside of what you shared with people that has been surprising to people and actually helped?
I've tried to put this idea through with clients about being more open. I've tried to talk to our company about being more open with clients, the people they know professionally, about our company, about themselves even, but a lot of just what's happening with the company and all that. And I think that isn't exactly the same as a friendship. There is that, but there's the same kind of give and take that people want to be closed off about that, but sometimes it's good for that open.
Closed off about what?
About things that might be difficult or that the company may be struggling. Say you have a safety issue that the company's struggling with. Rather than being open with a client, you may want to keep that to yourself.
You don't want to tell the client because then they're going to be like, well, we don't want to work with you.
Yeah.
Because you guys are having safety problems? What? Someone's going to get hurt?
Yeah. But usually if you're open and they're willing to work with you, and
they trust you because you're willing to say.
Because you're willing to be.
We've had some safety things we're working on.
Yep.
We are trying to adjust this.
Here's where we're at. We're open. And we'd appreciate any insight that you can give us. Same way with working with a friend, I think. If this is where I'm at, this is my faults, here it is. Is there some way you can help me or I can help you? It's
Man,
kind of the
I don't
same.
want to say that, like, I don't want to tell them that I'm struggling here, right? Like, I don't want them to know. They're expecting, like a client, like they're expecting me to have it all figured out. So then they're going to see me as incompetent.
Yep.
Or I used to try and be perfect a lot. Now I don't. I used to think, like, if I ever had anything come up that I had to, like, cancel an appointment or I was just such a failure. It's rare, but I'm human. I mean, I'm sick. I mean, I'm not sick very much. But to say, I got to deal with something with my daughter, let's reschedule or whatever. It used to be so hard.
Yeah.
But I'm much more like, just have fun.
Yeah.
Enjoy. They're human, just like me.
They are.
Yeah.
Yep.
I know.
Yep.
And they don't expect that. I guess the real difficult ones expect perfection, but like they
may not be the ones you want to work with.
I know. That's what you think. Can you tell me about a time when you tried to reach out to somebody and you encountered some rejection or it didn't go well and how you handled that?
Most of the time, the perception is not reality. I've had a few places where I've opened up with people, mostly people that I work with that I thought were less than open back with me, like more guarded than. But specific incidents be hard for me to say.
Yeah, that's interesting. You thought it would happen, but it hasn't really happened.
Most of the time when you open up with people, people are, I think, hungry for that kind of connection. Kind of drawn to that. There's a few times I can think of where there's people that we either didn't click or they had a different vision of how things. I can think of a couple instances where my vision was different than theirs, and being open with them really didn't solve the issue. It just was, they had a different point of view, and they weren't willing to go any further with it.
It's kind of like you're dating somebody and you realize you're not a good fit.
It's been so long since I've dated.
Well, no, I know. Well, you know, I know. So
no,
right.
It's something like
but,
that.
Yeah, something like that. Like, hey, we're just not philosophically a good fit. I mean, you're a great person.
Right. Yeah, sometimes
kind of
it just isn't meant to be.
Yeah.
There's some people that you still just talk about whether the Chiefs won or not, and not how their family's doing or how they're coping with whatever. So there's that. But that's part of the process, I think, that you're going to have to accept. If you have to accept that, it's rare, but I think that's part of it.
But it will happen.
It will happen.
If it doesn't go well.
Yeah, it's not the end of the world.
Yeah, so how do you make it not the end of the world if it does happen? Because you're like, it didn't go well, and then you step away from the interaction, then how do you cope with that at that point? What are your go-to?
I think you just realize that person's not a fit. There's somebody else there that will want that kind of relationship, and it may be a deal you come back later and give it another whirl, because
that's true. Yeah,
they could have had a bad day. Maybe
so you know how to do. You're talking more professional here. Well,
Well,
like, what if it didn't go well with that pastor? You shared some things. He's like, you know what?
But-
you should leave the church.
Yeah. Well, that would have been a deal. Yeah.
Well, then what would you have done? Like, because not that would ever happen, but it could happen.
Yeah.
I mean, people have had. I've heard people have really bad experiences.
Well, there's
with-
more than one church in Great Bend, so
I know.
I could have went
Yeah.
to a different one. Yeah, I think. Well, I can understand your point of view, but maybe something like that could happen. If it did, life would go on. You'd start over in some place. But usually, if something like that, if it doesn't click, it's worth another try. If you need to if you can have another conversation. I may have had a bad
You know
day.
what I would do
Yeah.
in that situation is
Yeah.
I'd call one of my friends
Yeah.
and I would talk to them about what just happened, and then I would call.
Right.
And one of my friends in particular, Ben, would be like, I'd just call him. He'd tell me something like, "It was worth it. It was good." And you know what? What'd you learn from it?
Yeah, I could call my brother, or there's a couple other people, and say, "Listen, this guy said this. What is it?" You know?
Yeah, I know. It's like, so that's where friends can be really helpful.
Absolutely.
In that. I remember last week or a couple weeks ago, we had like our legacy group reunion, and a guy was saying how he was trying to go deeper in a relationship, and it actually turned out really well.
Mm-hmm.
But one of the questions I had was, well, what if it didn't?
No.
And he said it would still have been worth it.
Yeah.
Still definitely.
I believe
been
that's
worth
right. It still would have been if the pastor would have said, "Listen, you're not a fit here."
Yeah.
Because of your past or whatever.
Oh my gosh.
It still would have been worth a shot.
Yeah. And I had that thought. Like, I remember that I lead senior boys at youth group, and I remember thinking after my divorce that I wasn't going to be, and I was really like, that was really cool that they still, and I mean, I have a ton to offer.
Yeah.
Like fart machines and pooters and I do. Like, it is for sure. It's perfect for senior boys.
That'll get you in the door, Adam.
It'll totally. They love that stuff. So it is, for sure. It's perfect for youth group stuff. Okay, so one final question. So what has been the best thing about getting on this journey? Actually, two, what has been the best thing about getting on this journey to build new connections that you're on now at 69 years old that maybe you weren't on at 65? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
The best.
Well, the best thing is the people, of course, that I've come to know better.
It's awesome, huh?
Yeah, that never would have happened. And those are the things, especially, and maybe I'm just saying this because I'm older, but those connections become more important to me.
Yeah.
And I think you need those in life. Well, you need them when you're younger too, but I didn't take advantage of it then. But those connections with the people are the biggest thing. Those people are.
Yeah. Isn't that cool? That is so cool. I know.
It is.
You know what? One of the cool things too is like in my career, just because of, I don't know, it's something about me or whatever, but like I work with a lot of really professionally successful people that don't feel like they have like the complete life,
right.
you know? And so like financial planners send people to me, or just, I work with a lot of people that run companies or whatever but it's the same thing. It's like, I get to see in you like how rich and deep it is. Like your life now, and like not that you didn't have, people look at you and say you had a great life. You know, like,
but
I want to be like Nick or whatever, but then you have this
pieces missing.
Pieces missing that you're getting, and it's like, so
big pieces.
Okay, and so I mean that's the most important.
Yeah.
Like this is crucial,
right?
And I mean, you're curious too. How has this impacted your relationship with your kids? at all.
I think
With-
good. I've spent more time with them. We did some like over Thanksgiving. I took a risk and asked them the questions on the sheet, the gratitude questions.
Oh, yeah.
There was like 25 of them or something.
Uh-huh.
Told them we're all going to sit down and write this out, right?
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Every question?
Every question. I'll read
Oh,
the
my
question. You write it
gosh.
out. We'll put
That's
it in the
awesome.
envelope. A year from now, we're going to open it up and see if they're changed.
No way.
Yes.
So
And
they didn't read them off. They put it in
No.
an envelope. It's like a time capsule.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
But that kind of connection, I don't know if I would have did that before. And I thought first, well, some of them we don't want to do that, stupid. But even the kids, the grandkids did it, and their parents, it was,
Wow.
I didn't look either.
So you're just storing that till next year?
Yeah,
You're gonna pull
it's in
that
the
out.
envelope. They're in the house.
Cool. Well, we got a link to that article too, 25 gratitude questions.
Yeah.
All right. We got another link in the show notes here. So very cool. Yeah. What's your vision like for where you want to be in 10 years with relationships and everything?
I still think that I don't know if they're not as strong as I would like them. I know that when you talk about your friend Ben, that's an inspiration to me. Absolutely an inspiration. Because you can talk to him, you say you talk to him a lot, you can talk to him about things, and that's the kind of friendship I want.
Yeah.
And I'm working at developing those, but I don't know that I'm at that space. So in 10 years, I want that group of people, either at church or someplace that I can have those kind of, and that's
cool. Yeah.
The rest will fall in somewhere.
You know, I think you described something that a lot of people, there's one thing you mentioned in this podcast too, that I think resonates with a lot of people, because I'm being a family therapist. I've been that for a long time. I see so many people that talk to me and they grieve the fact that they don't have the kind of relationship they want with the sibling.
Yeah.
And they have a sibling that they have a difficult situation. And you describe your brother as a friend. And what is the reason you can describe him as a friend? I think that the audience would really benefit from hearing that.
Because I can talk to him about pretty much anything. And sometimes that's not easy, but I can talk to him about most everything. And he knows my life, I know his.
Yeah.
Which is a neat thing, right?
It is.
That's a special kind of friend if you can open up and they are that kind of person that you can say, I did this or did that. They're the kind, he knows me, I know him. So all these things through this years have strengthened that I've learned about in Legacy Group, working with you, that have strengthened that relationship. Asking the right questions and just being open with him.
I've seen you talk, I've heard you talk about that and the openness that you have. And I'm envious of that because I would love, that's one of my hopes, is that my siblings can have that. Because it can be, I hold back, but you seem like you have a lot of safety in your relationship with your brother. And so you tell your brother you love him?
I do.
You do?
Yeah.
That's cool.
We even do it on text.
Do you really?
Yeah.
That's so cool. Man, I mean, that's such a challenging thing for people.
It is. It's harder than what you think.
It is. It is. And it's so cool because
I see that because my brother would say that, I love you. And I think,
no way. I don't text my brother I love him. I do say it not a lot, but I will on occasion.
I think it's a good thing to do.
It is a great thing to do. I do with my daughter. I mean, not a lot. And I do with my dad. I tell him that I don't text it to my dad. I do love him.
Yeah.
I don't love everything about these people, but I love. I'm just kidding. I do love them. So. No, that is so cool and so inspiring. So that shows you relationship help, just in wrapping it up. I mean, you build new connections and the benefits are amazing because it will make you resilient, your mental health, depression, anxiety. I mean, you can navigate through things. It's going to give you a new, healthier perspective, which really leads to you reaching your goals. You're seeing that you have potential to go further in your life and gets you excited. Like, I love seeing the excitement relationally that comes out. And I have that at times, and but it's so cool to see that, and then to know like the best is ahead. Like, that's so cool.
Exactly.
Like, so you'll never get old.
There's a future in that.
There's a future in that, man. And my thing, you're never gonna get old. If it's old's an attitude, man. If long as you're growing and challenging yourself, you're never gonna and you're healthy and you're blessed in so many ways too. And I am too. I want to remind you, if you found this podcast helpful, hit the link to Shatterproof Yourself. You can purchase the course. These are 7 big steps to a giant leap in your mental health. hit the link there. And also check out the last episode as well, which I give you some more information on making new friends. So Nick, if somebody wanted to like email you or had questions for you, how could they reach you? Are you okay with that?
Yeah.
Actually, you know what? I'll put it in the show notes. I
Yeah,
think
that'd
that's
be
perfect.
fine. Yeah,
put it in the
just
show
put it in the
notes.
show
You'll
notes.
find that.
Yeah.
You can contact Nick through
Yeah,
that.
if you want to talk, that'd be
got
great.
some questions for Nick. He'll answer those questions. So remember, insight is 20% of change. You gain insight, information, and then 80% of change is action. So Nick, by saying, hey, I want to build a better relationship with the pastor, he took an action to go ahead and do it. He had the inspiration enough to share it with people that he wanted to do it. But the fact that he shared it, accountability, he took an action. You're 100 times more likely to reach your goals if you share it with somebody. A plan that you act on is 100 times better as far as getting results than a plan you do nothing with, obviously. So it doesn't have to be perfect. Perfection paralysis. Not perfect, you take action. So what resonated with you most from what Nick shared today, so by the end of the day, apply it. Take some kind of an action. Do something with it, and then share it with somebody else, a friend. That would be great, because that will make it really stick. And if you teach it to somebody else, it'll help it stick as well. So I want to sign off today the way that I always do, making your mission to live the life now that you want to be remembered for 10 years after you're gone. You decide your legacy, no one else. I appreciate you greatly, and I will talk to you soon next time.
This show is part of the ICT Podcast Network. For more information, visit ictpod.net.